Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're in the kitchen again, and today we are going to make cookies. Specifically, we are going to make Nutty Date Drops. So these cookies are a lot of fun. They're really tasty, and they have dates in them. Now, if you're going to use dates, I recommend, first of all, you chop them before you start. They don't have to be chopped super fine, so that's about okay. That's okay too. They don't have to be chopped super fine, but you do want to chop them before you get started. You also want to buy dates that were already pitted. You don't want to pit them yourself. It's really annoying. So buy dates that were already pitted, and if they're also already chopped for you, that's even better. Because you don't want to use whole dates. Dates are very large and they don't make a good cookie unless they're chopped. So let's get started. You're going to need a saucepan. You're going to need a wooden spoon. And you are going to need 3 ingredients. The first of those ingredients is 1/4 cup of water. So not a ton of water, just a little bit. Then you are going to want 1/4 cup of sugar. There you go. So same amount of water and sugar. And then you are going to want 1 cup of dates. Put all those dates in there. Give that a little bit of a mix in your saucepan. You only need a small saucepan for this. Get all those dates nice and wet. Okay? We'll come a little bit over top of this so you can see what is going on. So you notice the dates turn a little bit darker. Give them a good mix. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn your stove on, your element on, to medium heat. Okay, and you want to heat these over medium. That's the wrong element. We all do that occasionally. So what we want to do is heat these over medium heat, not medium high, medium. Don't go higher than that or your sugar will burn. And what you want is for this to come to a very gentle bubble. So when it starts to bubble, you're ready. What you want to do is just kind of stir occasionally. If you stir constantly, it's harder for it to reach a boil. You're not truly boiling it, just bubbling it, but it's still difficult if you're stirring it constantly. So stir it every couple of minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to time-lapse this because this is boring. So we're going to time-lapse this, and I'll tell you roughly how long it took. And then we will continue with our recipe because, frankly, this part's kind of boring. So put your 3 ingredients together. Obviously, you'll need more ingredients after. But put your 3 ingredients together, and you just want to bring them to a bubble. So let's time-lapse now. There we go. Now it's bubbling. So when it starts doing that, you want to let it fully bubble, not boil, but you want bubbling to happen all across the surface. Give it a stir. Then you're going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Okay, 2-minute timer. And you're just going to let it thicken for 2 minutes, stirring on occasion. It also helps soften your dates. So again, we're going to time lapse. All right, there we go. So it took about 5 minutes for the top to bubble. And after it bubbled, it takes between 1 and 3 minutes, really. 2 minutes is average, but it takes between 1 and 3 minutes to get thick like that. So think about setting a timer for 2 minutes, but it may only take you 1 minute. It may take you 3. So you want it to look like that. Now we can't add this to anything right now. So what we're going to do is let this cool for a full 5 minutes. Let it sit off the heat, full 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll start to make the actual dough. All right, so it has been a full 5 minutes. The date mixture is fairly cool. It doesn't have to be cold. You don't need to wait that long, but about 5 minutes just to make sure it's cool. Okay, so now what we want to do is start making the actual dough. We want about a half cup of butter or margarine. Either works in this recipe. The defining flavor is actually going to be the dates and the nuts, so it doesn't really matter. Butter or margarine, it's fine. I typically use butter. Sometimes I use margarine. It doesn't really matter that much. Now you're going to want about half a cup of brown sugar. Remember, when you're measuring brown sugar, you want it to be tightly packed. Take an electric mixer, and we're just going to cream these together real fast. And like I usually do, I'll turn down the volume. Good enough for right now. Now we need a couple more ingredients. One is going to be an egg. So I'm just going to crack an egg. Dale, our lovely chicken, laid me a couple of eggs. So I'm going to use Dale's eggs. Egg, just one. You don't need more than one. One egg. Then you're going to want roughly a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm measuring just by eye here. You can and should be a little more careful when you measure. Let's beat that together. Again, I'll turn the volume down. All right, that looks about right. So we're just going to put the mixer aside. In my case, that means I'm putting it on the other side of the kitchen just because I don't want to trip on the cord. So put that aside. Now, just let me adjust my camera here a little bit. Now what we're going to do is throw a couple more ingredients in. We're going to go with 2 cups of flour. Just 2 cups. We're going to go with half a teaspoon of salt. Any salt you have. This time I actually just have table salt, which I know I don't usually use, but that's what I have right now, so it doesn't matter. You can use a Himalayan salt. You can use a kosher salt. It doesn't matter. Also, half a teaspoon of baking soda. Not powder. You want baking soda this time. Now you want to grab the wooden spoon that you used to mix the date mixture earlier, and you want to just mix this a little bit, not a ton. Just get a little bit of mixing happening there. Now we're going to grab our pot with our date mixture, and we're going to scrape the date mixture into our bowl. We want that sticky date mixture. Dates are very sticky. So if you have any jewelry on your hands, like a ring or something, this is a good time to take it off. I've already taken my ring off, even though I wear it almost constantly. You'll notice I have removed my ring. That's because it's going to get sticky. So give this a little bit of a stir just to kind of get flour on that date mixture so it doesn't immediately stick to your hands. Here we go. Okay. It's going to be still warm. It should be still warm, but it shouldn't be too hot to touch. If it was too hot to touch, you should have left your mixture longer. So it should not be too hot to touch. You can get rid of the wooden spoon now. Roll up your sleeves and get your hands in there, or at least one hand in there. So again, it should not be too hot to touch. It'll be warm. If it wasn't warm, then it would actually be quite stiff. So what you want is a little bit of warmth to that mixture when you add it into your cookies. Now, while you're mixing your dough, you want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Mine is just about done preheating. A few seconds away from being preheated. Okay, there we go. This is looking pretty good. You want to incorporate all that flour. Okay, it's important all 2 cups of that flour get incorporated. There we go. There we are. See, it should look like that. That's what it should be, okay? So it should be a dough an actual dough, but it shouldn't be super stiff. Okay, so it should be kind of fluid, not super fluid. Roll your dough up on the sides to get all of that flour. Okay, that's about good. And you see how sticky your hands do get? So don't worry about that too much, but just be prepared for it because it can get a little bit ick. Okay? Now I'm just looking for my cookie scoop. We love our cookie scoop. I've used it before in recipes. And yes, I'll provide another link to it because sometimes you can't find it. And honestly, sometimes you can't find it even with the link. It's not always in stock. But if you can get your hands on one of these Betty Crocker cookie scoops, you want to. So now we're going to get our cookie sheet. Any cookie sheet will do. You want to drop them by rounded tablespoonfuls. Okay, so just kind of put them in your tablespoon. Drop them like that. Okay, space them out decently. But you do want a fairly large cookie. You can do smaller cookies. Just remember to reduce your bake time. So remember, 375. Okay? Now you're going to cook them. Usually cook time for me is about 10 minutes. But depending on your oven, it may be anywhere from 8 to 12. Okay, so just be aware of that. So don't make your cookies huge. Okay, you do want them about the same size. And you can take your cookie and kind of just smooth the edges so it's more of a ball. Don't flatten these. You want these to stick up. Okay, because they'll spread on their own. They're a pretty loose dough, so you do want to make sure they stick up and spread on their own. There we go. So we're going to bake these for, I go 10 minutes. Again, your oven will determine how long you're baking them. If you normally bake cookies this size for about 10 minutes, it'll be the same here. So I'm putting a dozen on here, and then I'll have some leftover dough. I typically get, 18 to 20, depending on how big my cookies are. Obviously, you'll get less if your cookies are bigger, and you will get more if your cookies are smaller. But that's about how much dough I have left over. So we'll put that aside, and I'll do that off camera. But we're now just going to stick these in the oven, and we're going to stick them in the oven for about 10 minutes. Check them at 8 minutes just in case your oven gets quite ambitious. All right, so we're going to stick them in the oven 8 to 12 minutes. Think about 10. All right, so that was just 10 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's pull them out and see if they look like they need any more time. They don't. They are cooked because they're just browning around the edges, so that's excellent. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set a timer for 1 minute. Okay, we do not want to remove these cookies from this pan until 1 minute has passed. Now, while we're waiting for that to cool, you may have noticed I did not add nuts, even though these are Nutty Date Drops. You absolutely could have added a half a cup of pecans or walnuts while you were adding the date mixture. And you absolutely should do that. The reason I did not is my niece, who is anaphylactic to both walnuts and pecans, is going to be eating these. Therefore, no nuts in mine. But you absolutely can put nuts in. Pecans or walnuts work best, but you can, of course, use any nuts you like. However, you are also free to leave the nuts out if you have someone who is allergic or you just don't like nuts. Not everyone likes nuts. So, nuts or no nuts. It'll be about a half a cup of nuts if you choose to do that, but the nuts are entirely optional. So our timer is about to go off, our 1 minute timer. We do want to make sure we leave them for that full minute. Okay, we're going to turn our timer off, and I'm just going to quickly move the camera over to my rack, and we are going to quickly take the cookies off the rack and let them come to a complete cool down. And I shouldn't be going from that direction, but I am, because that's the direction I'm facing. So we want to put our cookies on the rack, like so. Let them cool completely. You notice how they have a nice dome shape. As they cool, they will fall a little, not a lot, but they will fall a little. That's okay. You want them to fall a little, not too much. So they have this nice dome shape. They will collapse and be a little bit, crinkly on top. Not a lot. So these are your Nutty Date Drops or your date nut drops, however you want to say it. Doesn't matter. It's the same basic idea. It's just a cookie with dates and nuts. Remember that you do need to make sure you heat that date mixture. God, I can't talk now. So you do want to make sure you heat your date mixture at the beginning. That is how these get such a nice rich flavor, is with the browning of the sugar and the dates. So without that, they don't taste quite as good. Could you just put all the ingredients in a bowl and mix? Sure, but if you heat them just for a few minutes, they'll taste delicious. So that's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. I hope you make this cookie on your own, and I hope your family enjoys it as much as mine does. We'll see you tomorrow.